G'day everyone, welcome back to True Eagle. Let's talk about round one. It is just around the corner. We've got a big test, if you want to call it that, against Port Adelaide on Sunday at Adelaide Oval, and it is a very tough ask to start the season. I'm going to title this video, Can the Eagles beat Port Adelaide? We will explore, the ways that we can try and at least get close to doing it in this game. But obviously, we do start massive underdogs in this game, and I've commented a few times on this channel that I kind of just wish our first game of the year was a slightly easier opponent at a venue that we fare better at. I know that we used to win at Adelaide Oval. I've never really felt like we've played that well there. So I think it's going to be a tough day. But let's talk about the best case scenario and even probably contemplate, what would we tolerate from this game? What's the worst case scenario? What are we reasonably expecting? And I want to get a feel from you guys as well, the audience. Whether you're a West Coast fan or you're not, let me know what you're thinking about this game, because I'm going through the whole spectrum of emotions. One minute I feel like this game is going to be an absolute bloodbath, and other days I can picture us at least getting close. So if you haven't caught it yet, I will live stream this game on the True Footy YouTube channel at 5 a.m. here in the UK. I'm going to get up for it. And then I'm probably going to do all my preview and review content here on True Eagle. So let's talk about the power first game of the year. I think back to last year when we played North Melbourne. That felt like a better chance for us to demonstrate the progress we'd made. And I think we did demonstrate progress in that game, even though we lost it and had one really bad quarter. 3 quarters we played all right. And this one, I just wonder if Port Adelaide's too strong opponent for us to be able to get good periods of play in. Now, we'll start this off let's journey back to the last time we played Port Adelaide. And funnily enough, this was actually not a bad result, considering this was a couple of weeks into the start of the injury crisis last year. And we did have good periods of play. I think we won the third quarter. We only lost the second half by 4 points, but we did go down by 40 points. Now, when you look at that compared to how a lot of the other games went through that middle shit period of the year, 40 points is not too bad. This result doesn't look too bad on paper. Now, as I record this, we don't know the selected teams. It's a Sunday game, so it's probably going to be Friday before we find out the actual teams anyway. But I estimate there's going to be about 9 changes from the last time we played Port Adelaide. And that is important to note, although having said that, we did also not play that poorly. And there's no guarantee that improving the side, even if 7 of those changes I thought were upgrades, 1 was a 50-50 and 1 was probably a downgrade. Even with that being the case, there's no guarantee that we're going to get closer, because we didn't play too poorly that game. I think Jai Cully had 4 goals. I think he got the Rising Star nomination. I think he did his ACL 2 weeks after that. And this was kind of the last game where, in my opinion anyway, everyone's going to have a different view on this, but this was the last game where there was pretty acceptable results. I think the following week, we lost by 108 points at home to Carlton. It's also worth noting, obviously, the Eagles go into this game without, in my opinion, 3 clear best 22 players, and then Hewitt, who I think should be best 22, but obviously as a 19-year-old, it's a leap to say that he comes in and improves the team, but I would say that Sheed, Ryan, and Flynn would probably improve this team in a meaningful way. It's easier to make that case. But it is also interesting to note, none of those players played in this game last year. Sheed didn't play, Liam Ryan had done his hammy, Elijah Hewitt was out with that ankle, Matthew Flynn wasn't on the list. So it's kind of reassuring in a way. It's also worth noting Hearn didn't play and Shuey was subbed off injured in this game. So again, none of this is evidence as to why this game is going to go better than last year, but it's still worth considering. And it should give us a little bit of reason to be optimistic, a little bit of reason to have a degree of expectation. If we set this game as a baseline and the injured players are coming back, we should have some expectation that it's not at least going to get massively worse than what it got to last year. Specifically in this game, losing by more than 6 or 7 goals. Now, I realize this is a very doomsday sounding tone to this particular preview, but I'm just trying to be cognizant of the fact that we are playing the team that finished 3rd last year, who were pretty strong at home off the top of my head, and have probably only strengthened in the off-season. But a couple of other positive things about last time we played them, we actually had more possessions than them in that game, which is only one stat, but it's something. We also managed 48 inside 50s, which is not great against the AFL average, but it is significantly more than our average, which was about 40 last year. That was a real problem for us, the supply inside 50, and we also won the clearances 42-41. Now, there is an important caveat to this. Bailey Williams was rucking against Bryn Teakle, who is no longer on Port Adelaide's list. They now have Ivan Soldo. So that in itself could be a major factor in how the clearance battle plays out. It could impact how many inside 50s we get. Bailey Williams got 13 clearances in this game last time. So that is huge, and I think that's improving their ruck situation that they've got there, as well as adding in a few key position backs. We know they recruited heavily, got Sir Thatcher, Asava Radagalia, but we no longer have an advantage in the midfield like we did, and considering the weakness of our midfield compared to what is a very strong midfield on paper in Port Adelaide. That part obviously is going to give us some concern in this game. So a little bit of a snapshot on Port Adelaide, like I talked about, they've got some recruits. Soldo into the ruck is a big win for them, I think, going into this game. Not that they really need the help, but got a bunch of key position players that I already mentioned there. As far as health of their list, it looks pretty solid. They're missing a few players that probably aren't best 22, outside of Sam Palpepper, who's of course suspended till about round 4 or 5, I think he comes back. So the first big question mark of this game is the ruck battle and the flow on from there in our midfield, which, we were horrific scores from stoppage team last year. So to what extent can Tim Kelly, Elliot Yeo, Ruben Jinby, and Harley Reid amongst the other midfielders that we have, and we don't have a deep pool of rotating midfielders there? How can they compete against Connor Rozee, Zach Butters, Ollie Wines, Jason Horn-Francis, who I think won 8 clearances last time we played them? Willem Drew is a pretty handy midfielder too. That's going to be tough for us, and it's not a case of us trying to win that. I reckon if we can just simply put enough pressure on their midfield to stifle their inside 50s, at least affect the kicks going in inside 50, then I think Barrass and McGovern could feature prominently in this game. And that's a big if. That's a big if, because we haven't proven effective at doing this in the past. And sure, last year, I think things got really bad because of the injury crisis, but even with a relatively healthy list now, and I don't think our injuries are too bad at the moment, I still don't quite have the faith that we are going to be able to stop Port Adelaide's midfield. So if I was going to point to one crazy scenario where we come out and beat Port Adelaide in round 1, it's our midfield putting in a fantastic performance, really at least stifling their midfield, allowing Barrass and McGovern to intercept and cut off their attacks and just limit their scoring. That's going to be a huge thing for us to focus on in this game. The contest, halving that, making it tough for their midfielders, giving our defenders a good chance to look at it, and then relying on our forward line to be super efficient, which, to be fair, it has been considering the lack of inside 50s over the years. So that's my best case scenario here, is that we are able to at least limit Port Adelaide in a big way and find ways to be efficient with our own opportunities. What will we be happy with here as a result in a game where we are serious underdogs? Like, I haven't looked at the odds, but gee, we must be rank outsiders to win this game. But what will we be happy with here? I think if we can put in a performance similar to the one 12 months ago, I'd walk away from that going, all right, we lost by 7 goals to a team that should be contending for the top 4 this year on their home deck. Considering, it's not the youngest 22 in the league, but it is a young midfield and a weak midfield at that. And then we've got a lot of players who, even though they might not be the youngest, we haven't played a lot of football together in the last couple of years, really. So I'm not trying to layer the excuses. I'm just trying to lower my expectations for what we might see in round 1. And I think if it's about 40 points, I really don't think we can expect too much more than that. I am hopeful. I'm optimistic we get closer. I'm hopeful that all the best case scenario things happen that I've mentioned so far in this video. And I've got this scoreline in my head, which means absolutely nothing, but 89 to 67, if we can keep them to 4 goals ahead of us, I think we walk away from that going, shit, we've made some progress. And I don't think that's overly negative, nor do I think it's wildly unrealistic either. But I put it to you, what would you guys tolerate? If it's a game like against Adelaide in the preseason, I wouldn't walk away happy, but I also would be pretty understanding that these kind of results are still going to happen for us, even with our best players back. It's going to take some time, and say it's 110 to 50 or whatever the preseason was, 117 to 50. If that's our round 1 result, considering the opposition, I wouldn't lose sleep over it. But then I think if we set the threshold for what will we not tolerate, and I think if this gets to 100 points, and I hate the fact that I'm saying that in round 1, and I don't believe it will be 100 points or anything like that, but that is where we would be like, oh shit, that is really bad. And I'm hoping we don't have to worry about that. So what is my prediction? I think I said on True Footy, I tipped Port by about 60 points. I do think this could be a tough day for this. Every time I think about it, I come up with a different angle, a different level of optimism for this game. Sometimes I think, yeah, we're going to surprise a few people and get close. And the other times I think, I don't know, because we have no data. We're one of the biggest unknowns in this league, to be honest. And that's not to say that, we could come out and make finals or anything like that, obviously. But in terms of how much our best 22 at the end of last year has changed between now and round 1, I don't know if any other team could say that their team looks as different, which doesn't mean we're going to improve in that linear fashion, but it does kind of make us an unknown as to what to truly expect from this game. So let me know in the comments, guys, what are your predictions? What are your hopes? What would you tolerate? What's your level of, yeah, that will be an okay result to walk away from, or that would be a terrible result to walk away from? It's tricky because I do think we've got a tough run of fixtures to start this season, which I've said before, it's not ideal. It's not ideal. It's not a whinge. It's just, I'm not saying it's unfair. I just wish we had at least one winnable game in our first month or so. But let me know in the comments, guys, what you think. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.